Hello, hello, this is Kim from Blank Page Muse, and I've got everything laid out today that we're going to use to make this wonderful stained glass hummingbird card that you make me happy. Hummingbirds make me happy. Hope they make you happy too. We've got our new clear stamp here with the stamps. You've got the bird, you've got this leaf set, some clouds, a little poppy shape. I think it's a poppy, I'm not sure. It's a really cute flower. And the sentiment, you make me happy. I've got some scissors for the fussy cutting at the end. I'm using my Versamark watermark stamp for the embossing. I've got the VersaFine ink for stamping. The background, the blue background here is Distress Oxide Salty Ocean. And pen-wise, I'm using a couple of Jelly Roll pens. I've got the Jelly Roll White and this Jelly Roll Metallic. I have the numbers on the instruction sheet as well, and maybe they show up here so you can see them. The metallic one's just going to add a little sparkle. And for coloring, I'm back to using the ProMark sketchy pens. They're a really nice fine point pen, which is really nice for getting into these small spaces and covering it with some really brilliant color. And it's just a basic set that has all your beginning colors, and I think I still have a couple sets in the shop if you need them. And some brushes for your ink for the background, and white embossing powder. Use any white you have and you should be set. I think this is good. Who's ready to color? I am. Let's go. And first of all, I want to start on the panel. I'm going to stamp the little leaves and the flower. And to do that, it's going to be easier if you use a stamping platform just to help with the positioning to get them where you want them. And I'm going to try to make a little room here. And the code, make sure you use the coupon code 𝐂𝐲𝐬𝐧𝐥𝐢 when you place an order. You'll get a little discount. I'm going to move this, and I believe it'll be on the video itself. And I'll bring it back later too so you can see it. But I just want to get it out of the way right now. Okay. I've got my stamping platform, and I'm just going to put the card down and attach it. I'm going to make sure it's kind of level there. That's good. And I'm going to take the clear stamps, and I want to start with the leaves, the leaf piece, and pull it off the background. And I'm going to want to have the leaves, the first one, going off to the side, a little bit like so, just a little above the bottom, and then off to the side here. And then we're going to stamp that, and then we're going to pick it up and move it and have it go the other direction so we have a nice little V. So I'm going to put it, about here, almost to the bottom corner. Off the edge is fine. And let's get it on here. Hopefully I don't wiggle it too much and make everybody dizzy. My paper moved a little bit. It's fine. I'm just going to push it back down. It's not critical on the placement. Let's ink it up and get going. And that's a little, looks a little dark. I'm going to give it just another quick stamp. Just to make sure I have it. There we go. And I'm going to wipe off the ink because I'm going to lift up the stamp and replace it, so I don't want a lot of ink on there to get a ghost image on the background. So I'm just using a rag to wipe off the ink. The Versamark comes off the clear stamps pretty nicely. And I'm going to turn the leaf around so it was stamping this way. And I'm just going to lift it up and turn it around. And I want it to crisscross across the bottom. You're going to have the little stem just about like so, where it's going across and they touch each other, just so it looks real like a branch. Let me go ahead and ink it up. And check the placement. There we go. That looks good. They touch. So it makes sense. It looks like, it almost looks like it's, you know, one whole stamp. So that's good. I'm going to go ahead and remove the leaves. I'm done with this stamp right now. So I'm going to wipe it off and just put it back on the background card that you store the clear stamps on. And the next piece, I'm going to do the little flower. It's a nice little flower blossom with a little stem. And we're going to place this so that the bottom of the stem comes up sort of, I'm going to raise it up a little bit because I want the flower blossom itself to be resting right between a couple of the leaves so there's not much overlap. And I want the stem to touch one of the branches so that it looks like it's actually coming off of it. So that looks pretty good there, at least from this angle, looks okay. So let me attach it and ink it, and let's stamp it and see if I got the placement to where it makes sense. There you go. I've got the stem, bottom of the flower, just touching the other stem, and it looks like it's resting right between the leaves. So that's really good. I don't have some crazy overlap. It works for me. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the ink and remove the stamp. And replace it on the background again. And this is done. The stamping is done on the background now. I'm going to go ahead and remove the magnets and set the platform aside. Sorry for the noise and the wiggle here. Now, since I've got the stamping done on here, I don't want to start the coloring yet. I want to get the clouds onto this piece of paper. To do that, you're gonna grab your stencil and your watermarking ink. And we're gonna do this in white. And the clouds, the way the stencil's built, you can use whatever clouds you like. I'm just gonna have them, a couple of them, let's see. I don't really want them right behind the flower because then that gets really close to it. So I'm just gonna use this top one here. I'm going to place it so that the top cloud is near the top of the card, and I'll use these three right here. They're just kind of coming down on a diagonal, okay? And I've got the little mica powder here to brush off it. I don't really care if there's little bits of the white on there, it's fine. I'm going to put a piece of paper under here just to catch the over the ink and stuff. And I will take a piece of washi tape and attach this stuff down so it doesn't scoot too much on me. And hopefully it's not too sticky. You want to use any low tack tape that you can get back off the cardstock without ruining it or tearing it. So we'll see how this goes. And I'm gonna put the stencil. I'm using the three clouds that are kind of in a diagonal, and I'm gonna have one of the clouds running off the edge. And I'm not gonna worry too much about that one. I think I'll go ahead and put a piece of paper over this cloud here so I don't get anything near the flower. It'll just make the coloring a little complicated in a bit. So I'm just gonna use this here to block it off, to kind of mask that spot. And I'm just going to hold that one down. And I'm just using a sponge and the old rectangular handle. And I'm just going to get it nice and inky, and it's still scooted on me. There we go. I'm going to hold it down a little better. I think I should have taped the stencil itself, but okay, I'll hold it down, it's fine. Okay. I'm going to remove the stencil, slide it off to the side. And it looks shiny. I'm going to go ahead and powder it and see how it came out. That looks pretty good. I know it may not show up too much on here, but I can see the outline of the clouds. There's enough powder on there. I pretty much stayed where I wanted it to stay. I'm gonna brush off a little excess here. Now I'm gonna put the powder back in the jar without spilling it everywhere, hopefully. There we go. And I'm going to I have a little paintbrush off the side here, and the stray powder itself, I'm just going to brush off. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and heat set it right now, so a little loud noise. Okay, I'm going to double check it. It looks nice and shiny. I don't see any dull spots. And if you want to, if you get the one layer of white down and it looks like there's too many little spots in it, you can put the stencil back over it and apply a little more of the powder. You're going to want to ink it up again and just line it up to the clouds you have there and apply a little more embossing ink. You don't even need to do the whole thing. You can just put a little bit on parts of the cloud, like the middle section, and do just a quick extra layer of embossing powder. It'll make the cloud a little more vibrant. It'll give a little thickness to it. So when we're applying the blue distress ink later, it won't get so, it won't show through as much or stain it as much. So just gonna do a quick second coat here. And I can see the dull spots, so it's stuck, which is good. Set that up. And I'm going to heat it again real quick. That looks nice and shiny, a little thicker, so I think it's going to show up a little nicer when we get to that background step. Okay, I'm going to set this one aside as well. I'm done with the stencil for now. I'll get it out of the way. Next up, you're going to want to grab another piece of cardstock, because we're going to stamp the clouds, the sentiment, and the hummingbird. We're going to use black. Use whatever black ink you like. I tend to use the VersaFine. It works really good with my ballpoint pens and everything like that. And the markers and watercolor and stuff. And for the hummingbird and everything else, I'm just going to use an acrylic block. It's just a little easier. I don't want to get the whole platform out just for these stamping, because it's not critical. I want good images. I want good images on them, but I don't have to line them up. So I can get them just like this. I'm gonna start with hummingbird, ink it up nicely, and flip it over. I can see I missed some ink right there. I'm gonna get nice and dark, as dark as I can. That looks pretty covered. I don't see any spots. They're empty. And doesn't need a lot of pressure. Just a quick stamp. Hold it there for a second to help let the ink transfer and lift it up. Looks good. I can live with that. It looks good. I like to wipe the stamps off, just because then I don't get so much ink everywhere. And if you need to stamp it again or want to stamp it a couple of times, you can do that. I'm going to do the little clouds. And the clouds, we're going to need 4 clouds all together, so I'm just going to put them on the black block together and then stamp it twice. And I'm trying on the scratch paper to make sure it looks good. There's 1. And 2. Those look fine. And let me grab the sentiment really quick, which is really fun. I love this one. You make me happy. It's so sweet. And I've got a nice spot right there to stamp it. Just going to test it again on the scratch paper. Make sure it's grabbing the ink well. There we go. And I think I can fit it in here. Actually, I'm going to use another piece of paper just so I don't have to squeeze it in. That looks good. Look at the image after you've stamped it. Make sure it looks clean and you're happy with it. And once you're set, you can put your ink away because we are done stamping. So, welcome back. We've got it all lined up, hopefully a little closer so you can see what's going on. I'm using these pens again. These are my ProMark sketchy pens. They're kind of a ballpoint gel ink sort of pen, and I used them a while back on the Christmas gnome and colored him, and they're just a lot of fun. The ink flows really nicely and it's vibrant. I really love the bright, vibrant colors these have. It's so exciting. For the white highlights, I'm using a Jelly Roll 5 pen. And then there's some little silver highlights that I'm going to use in the clouds. And this is the Jelly Roll pen, and it's got this number XPGB number 700. It's a metallic shiny pen. And the cool thing is when you put the shine, when you do this, the shininess on it, it doesn't obliterate what's underneath. It's still kind of see-through, but when you angle it, you see the sparkle. So those are going to be the highlight pens. The flower itself, I like to do it in pinks and reds. And then the leaves, of course, I'm keeping them traditional and real and greens. I usually start with lighter colors. I start with light colors and then I go dark. So let's start with the flower. Let's jump in on the flower, okay? I'm gonna put in some yellow first because that's the lightest color. And grab another piece of scratch paper here so that I can test the pen a little bit as we're going. And I want yellow up here in this top part of the middle of the flower. And I'm going to make it yellow all the way down. And then these tips that are right here that kind of fold up, those are going to be a little bit yellow. And this little triangular area here in the middle of the flower. So we're going to put down the highlights first. Okay? And I just make these gentle strokes coming down. And it's such a smooth pen, and the glide, there's no resistance, so it's real easy on the hands and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun to color with these. So got some yellow coming in here. I'm going to add more yellow in this little triangle here, and this one on this side too. And then the little part that curls up here, just all along the top of the section right here. Bringing the yellow in and down, the tip over here. And you can go down a little bit because it's going to get covered up with the reds and the pinks, so you're fine. And these little bitty under petals here, I'm going to bring in some yellow there so they stand out and don't get lost. I'm assuming they're part of the flower. I'm seeing it that way, so that's why I'm going to make it the body of the flower, not like green part of the stem or whatever. Okay. Okay, so I've got the highlights in. That looks pretty good there. Hopefully you can see it all okay. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit of, I'm going to come in with some pink. I'm going to go to the next one, and then after pink it'll be red. And I'm going to start from the bottom up towards the yellow this time. And I like the lines to show. I just love that texture that it brings in. I'm going to move over here to this area here and bring it up to this little bit. I'm just going to put a little bit in there. I want to leave this area mostly yellow so it stands out from the rest of the flower. And trim this a little bit. Okay. And from the center here outwards on both sides. Okay, so I've got some pink in there. Now I'm going to switch over and start adding in some red. And I'm just scratching it to scribble it to make sure it's going. Okay. Starting at the bottom, and I'm just bringing up the red. Going to go up a little higher into the yellow there. Working all those sections where I have the color, just starting to deepen it. And let's see, still need a little bit over here. Okay, so I've got the basics, I've got some red in there, and now it's time to try to pull these together. To pull all the colors together, I'm going to switch to some orange. I'm going to bring orange in, and I'm going to come from the bottom of the section all the way up into the yellow. And hopefully if I do this right, it'll kind of blend together and look a little better. And I'm letting the orange come up almost to the top of the yellow. Again, I really like the stroke marks and how they show up. And I'm going to move around on the side since I'm right here already. A little bit here. I turn it a little bit. Get to this section here. And those bottom petals. Okay, looks pretty good. I'm skipping back to the yellow a little bit to add just a little bit more layer and blending in on here. I really like vibrant colors, so these are a lot of fun. I think that's why I keep coming back to these pens. They're smooth and they just look so nice and bright. Our little fiery flower here. Okay, And that looks pretty good. I really want to deepen the bottom, the bases here. So now I'm going to come in with some purple. It's a purple pen, and I'm just adding it at the very bottom here where it's coming out of the center of the flower, and just bringing it up and in towards the red and up that way. And that's just giving some contrast and deepening that red. There we go. And a little bit more right here. And just check your colors. You're doing fine. I'm coming back to a little bit of red to smoothen the two colors a bit. There we go. I like that. And these very, very center parts, I'm going to make them yellow. And I'll add some sparkle and white onto them when we're done. Okay, we've got that outer part done. Now all we need to do are the insides of these petals. And basically they're going to be red and with pink in the very center part. So it's going to be red along here. It's going to be red along the top and then red down at the bottom. And we're going to leave the center-ish in pink. So starting with my lighter color, I'm going to go to pink first and kind of lay in where that highlight would fall. At least to me, that's where it would fall. And don't worry about if it starts to get a little dark right here with the pink, because we've got that white jelly roll, which will brighten it up in a minute. I'm going to come in with the red and from the bottom up towards the pink, but not all the way into the pink. I don't want to really obliterate it. I want to let some of it still show. I'm going to skip to this side, put the red from the bottom of the flower upwards. Hold the pen. Hopefully you can see it okay. Alright, and now I'm going to start at the top of the petal and come down. Also in red, still in red I should say, I guess, huh? Just adding in the color of the strokes. I really like that feathering feel that these have. So when you look at real flower petals, you see those lines, the veins in there, and that's what this reminds me of. Just giving the flower some real texture. Okay, I'll set that aside for a second. And I'm going to come back to pink to kind of blend in those three sections together. And the areas that I left in, that the white of the paper still shows through, I'm going to come over it with some pink. Just filling in to get rid of all the white paper. Alright, still a little bit showing here. You could even come back with a little bit of yellow on those marks there. And if you put a little yellow in, it'll give a teeny hint of orange. And just kind of, again, it helps blend it together. There we go. That looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Just touching a couple of the areas that look still white that I see showing through a bit. And with those inner petals, if you wanted to, you could come back with your darker, your purple, and just add a little hint at the bottom of those petals. And that'll help kind of force the illusion of it bending. And there we go. Okay, I've got the basics of the flower done there. Now I'm gonna move down to the greens, the green of the base of the flower and the leaves here. I'm gonna start them again with yellow. I like yellow as the lightest part, so it'll blend naturally into the green. So I'm starting there. And all the leaves, I'm just gonna go ahead and put down some yellow from the bottom all the way up to the top of each leaf. If you have a different way you like to do leaves, be my guest. Use whatever colors you have at home, whatever pens you have at home, or even watercolor it, whatever you like. So I chose to use these pens again today because they're a lot of fun. And I really like to leave the tips of the leaves, the outer tips, on that lighter color, be it a light green or a little bit of yellow showing through. Turn this around a little bit. And if for some reason you got these stamped too close and something overlaps, you can decide which part you want in front. So like if the leaf and the bottom of the flower overlapped a teeny bit, you could decide if you want the flower in front or the leaf, and kind of color it in appropriately to kind of fool the eye on the dimension. Okay, get these ones over here. Okay, I've got enough yellow down. Now I'm going to come into a light green and start it at the bottom and work to the top on each one also. And I hope I'm not going too fast. Hope you're able to kind of keep up. Hope you really are having fun coloring this as we're going along here. And when this is all over, hope you post it so we can all see how it came out. I'd love to see what you're doing. And then back over to this side. Okay, once you have the green and the yellow, let's come in with the last darkest green you have, whatever you like to use on leaves. This one, it's a little darker than the light green, so that's what's going to be the very bottom of the flower. And just pulling the strokes upwards to kind of blend across and still keep those lines. I'm a little light on this one. There's still a lot of white paper, so I'll come back with the yellow pen and clean that up after I'm done with this darker green. Starting to look pretty good. I've got a little bit of white into the middle of these back petals. All right, so once you have the leaves to the point you're happy with, you've got the green and the highlights and stuff, might want to come back in with a little bit of white just to bump up the highlight in the center of the flower. Just short little strokes like that, just a little bit, helps just give that little bit of highlight. Like I just said, I'm rambling, sorry. I'm going to go over it with a little pink just to blend it together. That underneath white just helps brighten it a teeny bit. Okay, that's that. While we're here with this piece, I'm going to take away the scratch paper and we're going to do the blue sky. We'll get this piece all done and put it aside, and we'll do the hummingbird. So for the blue sky, I'm using the Distress Oxide Salty Ocean. And I am just going to use just a brush to put it on because I kind of want those little strokes on it. I'm going to use two sizes. I've got a medium size and a teeny one here. So I'm going to start with this one. You know what? Scratch paper. Just to ink over it so I don't get ink absolutely everywhere. I'm a really messy crafter. There we go. So scoot it up here. Pens off to the side. And for the blue, we're going to make it darker blue at the top and then kind of fade in towards the bottom. So from the outer edge, just moving, you want to have your hand moving and then hit the paper, and that helps it blend in a little smoother. And on the embossed parts, you can take the ink, the blue ink, right over the embossed cloud because it's a resist and it's going to wipe right off in the last step there. And just start bringing the blue in all the way around, down towards the flower we just colored. You make little swirl motions. And I'm going to add a little bit up in here, around the leaves and all that. Everything doesn't have to be colored because, you know, when you've got clouds in the sky and the blue, how it just kind of, you see parts of the sky and parts more clouds. It's very see-through, and then it gets heavier. So you want that kind of look with your sky that we're building here. Kind of sneak it in. Then when you want to get a little closer to the flower itself, switch to a smaller brush if you're using the brushes. Ink it up, and then bring it in. And I kind of like the small one because you all of a sudden get these little circles in here, which just looks like the parts you see through on the sky itself on a cloudy day. Swirl it in. Just get a little in between here to make it so the flower is definitely, you know, with the nice sky background. Bring all the blue in you can. You can go honestly as light or as dark as you want. I try to keep the top of the card a darker blue and a little so it fades out, but it all looks pretty. There we go. I'm going to stop it there so we can move ahead a little bit. And what you want to do is take a damp cloth or rag just with a little bit of water, and you're going to go over the blue. I'm going to get the cloth wet, and I'm going to wipe off the clouds just to remove that blue. So that the white pops back again. And if it doesn't look like it's coming off, go ahead and put a little water on it. That'll help it move, and it'll help smooth the distress ink you've got on the background of the card. There we go. I like that. You can swirl it in as much as you want. Now, since this is a little wet, that's why I want to do it first, to set it aside and let it dry. So we'll go ahead and move on to the hummingbird coloring. Here. Now it's time to do the hummingbird, this wonderful hummingbird. It looks really complicated. There's so much information on it, so many spaces, but we're just going to kind of work section by section. We'll do the crown and the throat, and then move to the feathers and then the wings. And it's just kind of overall color and then layering on some highlights. So I'm going to start with the throat area here, and I'm going to go ahead and still use yellow as the base in all these little sections. I want my scrap paper here to start the pens. And I'm going to start right in here in this curve, right around this leaf area. I'm going to go ahead and put yellow all around here. And I'm going to fill it in. And you can even, with these pens, you can color over the black lines and it really doesn't show up. It doesn't affect it. So it makes it easy for kind of a quick color. And we're spending a lot of time on coloring, but that's what this whole card is about, is just the colors and having fun with it. So hopefully you're able to color along, and hopefully this is okay and you're seeing it all good. Really nice. Just getting the yellow all in these areas here. It's my nice base to keep the pop of color. I like to start light and then go darker, because otherwise it just kind of washes out and just gets muddy. So here we go, putting yellow all in here. All of these little triangle shapes up here. The whole top part of the bird, actually, huh? And I am going to leave the leaf shape here alone, because I'm going to come back and do that in the greens. And these little teardrops here, filling in the yellow. All the way around. And even all of this up in here is actually going to be yellow. This little flower shape on the crown, these little areas here, this half circle, and the flower petals on the outside, that's going to stay yellow. Now I'm going to come in and put a little bit of pink along the bottom of the throat here. And I'm switching to red now. And red's gonna start here at the bottom, these feathers, and just come all the way up, leaving the tips yellowish. To hold in that highlight area. And the very top of the crown, a little red there. Again, you can do these in any colors you're happy with. These are the colors I have in this set of pens, and it's a lot. I'm using what I have. And let's see, a little bit of orange now. And that kind of helps bring that red and yellow together a little closer. And little flower petals at the crown. That looks, I got all the color in there. I'm going to come into this leaf area with a little light green over the whole thing. And then switching to a darker green just for the bottom and the center. Just bring it a little bit out. I like leaving the tips a little bit lighter. There, that's good. We've got that. Now I'm going to turn this around a little bit, and we're going to do the bottom, the tail feathers. Coming back to yellow, I'm doing the whole base is yellow, and I'm just going to do this whole center section. There's the center section of the feather, and I'm going to leave this dashed part alone. That's going to be the next step. So I'm putting yellow in here. As the base, getting the ink down on the whole thing. I'm just coloring over the black lines again. Turn it a little bit. Then I got some yellow over here where I didn't want it, but it should be fine. It'll cover up with the other colors. Then you have the very last, the inner tail feather here. I'm going to just keep yellow on this part here, and then this little long stretch that comes in. Keep that yellow. Now set aside the yellow, and now I'm going to go ahead with light green. And the light green is going to come in from the base of the tail feather outwards. And this part, I'm letting the pen strokes, the ink strokes show a little bit. And I'm going to come on down, a little really light on the bottom of the tail feather there. So it starts darker here and then gets lighter as we come to the tips of it. Just a real light touch if you're using these ballpoint pens. There we go. And this feather here. And then the very last one, we'll bring in some green here and green at the section. Okay, now I want to further darken where the feathers connect to the body. I'm going to come in with a little bit of dark blue. Just at the very bottom of the feather, and I'm not going to come out too far with it. Okay, and I still want to blend it a little bit more, so I'm going to switch to some purple and draw some purple. Oh, my pens are rolling away. I'm going to bring some purples to the very edges, like that. Just a little bit out. There we go. And still looks kind of a lot of lines on it, so I'm going to come back with yellow over the whole thing just to kind of smooth it in a little bit. There we go. Okay. And now I'm going to do the outer sections. I'm going to do pink all the way around those little dashed sections that the bird feather has. Again, I'm not coloring each section, I'm just going around in the big space over the black lines with this pen. Still covering up all the white. Sneak some pink in between there. Bring it down to the bottom. There we go. And then the very top of it, I'm coming back with some purple. That kind of helps it blend with the other dark that I have on the other feathers. I'm going to see what a little bit of yellow. I'm going to come back with yellow to hit these lines that the little bits that didn't fill in with the pink. It'll give a little pop of orange. There we go. And now we've got to do those little eye sections. And I'm going to do it in yellow. These little circle sections. Polka dots are so much fun. There we go. And a little swirl of red in the center of the dot here. There we go. And I want to see what how a little light blue does on that up here. Okay, we've got the nice darkness coming out to the light. Hope it shows up okay for you there. Okay, we've got the tail feathers done. Now we're going to move to the wings. And the wings, going to do again, I'm putting the yellow base down. It's going to be yellow. And we're going to do some red and orange. And the highlights would be pink and purple. Let me get these pens over here. There we go. And on the wings itself, it has the very center and that little loop. So this is the part that I'm doing in yellow. It's the center section of the wing here. It's a big long area, so it's really easy to fill it in with color. And the very top of it here. I'm also going to go ahead and put down a little yellow in the outer section here. And the back wing, I'm going to use the yellow while I've got it here. And now orange, moving to the next color. Again on this yellow section, starting at the top of the wing and coming towards that other circle, that loop. And a little bit right there, and feathering it out here too. Okay. And yellow and orange are going to be the dominant colors on the bottom side of the back of the back wing here. And with having nice smooth yellow, this pen feathers nicely on top, and you see those strokes, which is really nice. Okay. And then, let's see, we've got these little circles that I left white. Those are going to be pink. Doing pink at the very top of that circle, and all the way to the, bringing it towards the back, the bottom here. And that's all the pink. Now I'm switching to purple to finish that same section. To purple from the top line up towards the top of the curve. Just bring that purple in, and then it blends in really nicely to the pink. That looks pretty nice there. Okay, and now the edge of the scallop, the edge of the wing here, I'm going to use some green, and that's going to help tie it into this area here and to the feathers. So I'm going to use green on the outside edge down towards that yellow and orange, emphasizing that nice curve. That's good. And I'm going to bring a touch of purple onto it too. Just a little bit. And I think I want to darken that orange, so I'm going to come back over, bring the orange pen back in to this section here. And with the yellow to pull the two sections together. Now the outer one, I'm going to do some light blue from the top of it downwards towards the yellow. And then it's going to go dark purple from the edges. Okay. Just got a little bit of ink on the tip there I wanted to wipe off. Bring that down, inwards. There we go. Okay, and just a little bit more yellow to finish filling in those white sections. There's still a little bit of white that I can see. I'm not sure again how it shows up for you. Hopefully it's all good and you can see everything good. Alright, and all that's left is the beak. The beak, I'm just going to go ahead and do it in a blue. Actually, I'm going to do dark blue. Okay, that finishes that. And I want to bring in some white highlights. So I'm going to use the white Jelly Roll pen. And I'm going to move these out of my way. And I'm going to put white dots in these little circle areas here, Just doing a little bit of a circle shape right on the crown, and then each of these other little petal shapes right here, just bringing in that white highlight really quickly, and you don't have to do the step if you don't want to. I just like how it ties it together a bit better. Helps smooth it out. Okay. And I'm going to add some white down here. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. The next steps, going to grab your cloud pieces, and you're going to take that silver pen and you're just going to add some swirl color. So it's very fine. It's just adding some sparkle more than anything. And just on the clouds, you can leave them plain if you like. Since I have this metallic marker, it's just going to add a little sparkle and a little texture to them so they're not quite so plain. And just color in circles around inside the lines there. And if you like, at this point, you can come back to the hummingbird and add some highlights, some little shine. So you know how hummingbirds, when the sun hits them, they just glisten? So that's the effect you're adding in here. Just a little bit here and there. It goes right over. It really doesn't interfere with the colors you've created at all, but it gives it just that little bit of sparkle. So when you hold it up, you see that little glisten, which is so much fun. Okay, and I'm going to grab the flower while I have the silver pen. I'm going to bring this back into and do the same thing. A little bit of sparkle on the center of a flower, and just a teeny bit on the flower petals themselves. And you can even add some glisten on the leaves. And again, this is that Jelly Roll pen. Here's the number here, and I put it on the instruction sheet as well. So hopefully you can see that. All right. And the hummingbird, I'm going to place him so that he's just kind of coming in for a landing. The sentiment, I like it up here. You can put it crooked, you can put it straight, however you want to do, near the top of the card. And the clouds, when I stamped the leaves, they're kind of floating up there. So I'm going to go ahead and put one of the clouds right here, and that's going to kind of anchor it to the bottom of the card so it's not all totally floating. I'm going to tuck in one of the little clouds back here. It's going to be hanging off the edge, so we'll trim it. And then I've got another cloud here. You can place them however you like, just whatever makes sense to you. Maybe that one here, and then this one to the top. Yeah, that looks pretty nice. I'm going to attach the hummingbird first, and then the clouds kind of underneath the bird. Does that make sense? Because I want the hummingbird placed. That's most important to me. So I'm going to put him on there first, and then the clouds underneath. And I'm going to use, I just have this foam tape. It's a little thick tape. I probably got it at a dollar store. And again, I want him looking like he's coming in or just getting ready to take off, but he's sort of above the flower, angling downwards a bit. I'm not going to have him overlap the card panel too much. I want to try to keep him inside. So once he's attached, that's great. Now we can start putting on the clouds. You can again arrange them however you like. And all they take is like one little piece of foam tape. I'm going to keep the one at the bottom here. I really like that placement. It helps anchor those leaves back in there since I stamped them a little high. And I'm just making it even to the bottom of the card. Okay, this other cloud, do I want it up there? tuck it in under the tail a little bit, about like so. That brings the level up. Now I just realized, sorry, I placed the two clouds here, so I'm going to switch these just so they're just not stacked up on each other. There, that's a little more interesting when you alternate them a bit. And go ahead and attach the foam. And this one, I'm going to go ahead and tuck it under the beak a little bit, and that's going to help support the beak just a little bit on the edge like that. Just a little overlap. There we go. And the last cloud, I do want it hanging off the edge at the top there. So I'll put the foam on. Oops, stuck to my fingers. And I'm going to tuck it in under the wing and bring it down. There we go. And the sentiment. I'm going to go ahead and keep the sentiment near the top of the card. I'm not going to measure it, just going to eyeball it and make it straight. As straight as I can that way. Good. Everything's attached. Yes. And I'll set the foam, the thicker foam aside. I have my card base. And these edges, I'm just going to take some scissors and trim them off as straight as I can to the side of the card. There we go. I have my card panel and the card base, and I'm just going to use some flat tape. I am going to put a piece of paper down in case I have ink on there. I press this down so it doesn't stain the front of the card. If I have a tape runner, it's probably easier than the roll stuff like I'm using right now. Whatever adhesive you have, whatever you like to finish assembling them with, it works just fine. Could even use a regular glue, I imagine. Okay. Okay, all the adhesive and my card base and panel here. And I'm not going to measure it. I'm just going to eyeball it and make sure it's fairly centered where I want it. Put it down. I'm going to turn it over and just press it on. And there we go. We have our You Make Me Happy Hummingbird, stained glass Hummingbird card. There you go. Make sure you use coupon code July Expo. Save 20% on your order. And come shop with us and come back color again sometime. Thank you. Have fun.